This is not a test. Don't expect to be impressed. Put on your life vest. Sit down your armrest. It's time to stray from the grind. Don't take my hand, 'cause you'll find no peace of mind. Side quest.
Hey everybody, welcome to Side Quest, the episodes we do between the episodes for which this podcast is named and originally started. I am Drew Hayes. Joining me today are Robert Bevan, Rick Gualteri, and Judy Black.
Howdy.
Hello, friends.
Hey.
Usually we do a little bit of preamble and whatnot, but we've got a pretty meaty topic, and you already know what's going on from the title. We're talking about the Wizards of the Coast, OGL, debacle, their apology slash gaslighting bullshit, the absolute fuckery they were trying to pull. And honestly, I think the best thing I can do is just kind of turn Judy Black loose. Could we start with a recap for Bob and perhaps any of the audience members who aren't as caught up as you are?
All right, for the record, I'm aware of this.
Oh no, you are. I'm not as caught up as she is either. Like, Judy is the most caught up of any of us. But
I'm just saying, this isn't a Marvel movie. I've been paying a little bit of attention.
Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know, OGL stands for the Open Gaming License, and it has been in effect since 2000, with 3rd edition is when it first went into effect, so 20 plus years of this thing. So recently, near the beginning of January, a leaked version of a new version of the OGL was published by Gizmodo, and caused massive amounts of backlash because it's utter garbage. And basically blew up the D&D community. Wizards remained silent for about a week before putting out a Friday dump press release that was absolutely, completely nonsense. Gaslighty, attempting to be funny, wink wink, we're one of the cool kids kind of a statement that honestly should not have made it out the door.
We're gamers too.
nobody signed that statement.
Yeah.
It's very telling that there's no name on that bad boy.
Yeah, exactly. Which just from a pure I've worked in PR and marketing for a while, and just from a pure PR standpoint, I don't know what. You would assume that a company this old and this big kind of knows what they're doing, but what?
Oh, yeah.
At every step we've seen it, they have proven they do not.
They might as well
Absolutely.
have said, oh, greetings, gamer community. We too are gamers, just like you.
Yeah, I mean, it super had the I am a cool kid like you vibes. Which the statement did absolutely nothing but make more people angry. So this week they finally have released a better statement, which poor Kyle Brink, poor guy. He has been with the company since maybe November.
Jesus, Kyle, in that little a time, you fucked things up this good.
Yeah, because the previous director, I think, left in late October, so given a
wonder
hiring
why.
process, probably, yeah, he's been here maybe 3 or 4 months. So,
Clearly, the mastermind behind all of it.
Poor Kyle. The money
Yeah.
men must one of the money men must hate him, because they're just like, this guy is the one they'll come for when they break out the pitchforks and torches.
I mean, I don't. There's an old
Basically.
corporate saying that it's not exactly what we're seeing here, but he started in November. If y'all have heard
Mhm.
"last hired, first fired," I think we're kind of seeing the modern version of that. Last hired, first scapegoated.
Yep. Yeah. So, and then today they have officially released the draft version, which is very clearly marked draft, which the original leak was not, because it was not a draft. It was a contract sent to creators with a deadline for signatures. So funny story. I love how they keep repeating that lie. But yeah, that's where we are. So today we have the new OGL that has just released. for feedback, which funnily enough, they didn't include the link to the survey when they've shared the new one. So I bet that link is just going to quietly show up sometime on Friday.
We would love to hear your opinion, just not today.
Yeah, not today when everyone is talking about it and clicking on the link and the traffic will be the highest. No, not today.
It should also be noted there's been reports, we don't know how much veracity there is to them, but that their surveys in general are just used as a dumping ground for negative feedback to keep it out of the public eye. And now that part may or may not be true, but there's some very legitimate concern that this whole give us your feedback thing is an attempt to pivot the conversation out of the public eye, because they have been getting bashed nonstop. Their value has been dropping. I can't imagine how there hasn't been a no confidence vote from the stockholders.
Right
to be
now,
frank.
they're probably getting the same bot farm that like Elon Musk uses for his Twitter polls. To feel like, yes, we think this new OGL is swell. No, we have no questions whatsoever. Please go on with it.
I can't imagine they give a shit one way or another. What they just don't want is the noise being in public anymore.
Yep. So yeah, it's a super hot mess. A lot of the big name third party publishers are abandoning ship and creating their own, working on new things. There's the org, which will be a new gaming system that people can use as a thing. Which it's really interesting because technically speaking, you can't copyright game rules. So technically speaking, there is no copyright there. So it's games are a weird space as far as like IP rules go.
Did not know that.
Yeah, you can't copyright there's it yeah. So it's like how if you've ever played Words with Friends, it's Scrabble. That's Scrabble. That is the game Scrabble. But they don't call it the same thing. They don't use the same terms, and because the method of a game can't be copyrighted, it's allowed.
Coming soon to a Kickstarter. Build a vampire opoly.
I do want to take a moment to dig in on just how bad this OGL update was, because it fucked so many people in so many ways. It added a royalty reporting requirement to Wizards of the Coast. So whatever you're doing, if this fucking podcast, if we updated any of our shit to the 1.1 whatever their next system is, we would technically, under that thing, be obliged to report any income to Wizards of the Coast. And I think it was originally, if it crested 750,000, then they would get a cut. But it's sort of the I'm renegotiating the deal. Pray I don't renegotiate it further. Yeah, sure, you start with 750, but who's to say it doesn't go down to 700?
But here's also the
fucking
thing.
dollars.
There would have been if we updated, there would have been no choice with the original. It was basically saying, oh, that first one, that word perpetual in it, fuck you, it's gone.
That was their intent. It is probably worth mentioning that almost every legal opinion has come down with, there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way you can rip out the old OGL, because so much of it speaks to it exists in perpetuity. Someone would have to have the money to fight that in court, but the odds of them winning were scant.
Yes, yeah. And then how some people were interpreting that change for the $750,000 threshold was also that it could be considered the lifetime of work. And so if your lifetime of work crested that point, would you then also have to start reporting and paying? Or, for the people who have Kickstarters that suddenly go extremely successful, suddenly you're totally fucked because you raised $751,000.
And honestly, even that is really the lesser of the spiked dildos to the independent creator, because the real fuck you piece of shit move, at least to my thinking, was the one that gave them the rights to your fucking content to use as they saw fit, to publish, to just to do whatever. It's if I hadn't written Spells, Swords, and Stealth to be explicitly not D&D, if I had very carefully not steered clear of their mechanics or anything, and say I didn't do that, say I did publish it as they were playing D&D, and this OGL shit went through, they could just be like, all right, well, we're gonna make a movie of this because this is ours.
Yep. And there still is
Called
the
Caverns
new
and
one
Creatures.
still has the new one still has some potential for that where, oh, if we happen to put out something that's similar to yours, you can't really do anything
Yeah.
except for claim damages. But that's maybe jumping ahead to the new one.
Well, instead of jumping ahead, I want to hit the rewind button a little bit. I was talking to Rick about this before we started recording, and I've never been clear. Why was there ever an OGL to begin with? What was in it for them?
So basically the OGL, sorry, let me put on my little nerd hat for a second. So the
We're all
OGL
wearing
was
our nerd
started.
hats.
I was like, we're fighting about
Yeah, I know.
D&D rules.
We're recording
Yeah.
a D&D podcast. So the OGL started in 2000 with 3rd edition, and essentially what it came down to is that Wizards, they needed to be able to create adventures and things, but they only produced roughly maybe 4 or 5 books a year, not enough to keep up with all of the demands of all the players. And so by adding in new people, and provide things for those people so DMs could get game adventures from other people as opposed to having to wait on Dungeons and Dragons and potentially finding a different game to play instead. And also there was a lot of I think ill trust in the community around the 3rd edition with ownership of games and kind of just some tense vibes, which they then blew up in 2008 with 4th edition. But they
Yeah.
started with good thoughts.
Just quick note. Also with OGL fuckery.
Yeah, well, technically, 4th edition was under the GSL, which is a completely different thing, not the OGL, but it's even super way more draconic and worse than OGL, and it's one of the big reasons why 4th edition completely failed. I mean, aside from just
Yeah, of which there were
Yeah,
many.
maybe just nobody wanted to use those rules.
Yeah, it was a bad system. I mean, I'm sorry if you liked it. I'm sure some people enjoyed it, but it was not a fun system for D&D players to transition to, because it lacked the depth and stuff that we were expecting. But even on top of that, what fucked them harder was nobody was producing good third party, or I think any third party content for it. So they gave us a bad base, and then there was nothing built on top of that foundation.
And it was a nightmare to play if you tried to actually keep up with the errata, because one week your character would be OP, the next week your character would be nerfed, the next week your character would be overpowered again, and after a while it was just like we'd show up to the game and be like, okay, I don't know what powers I have and don't have anymore.
Yeah, 4th edition was
a shit show.
Yeah.
Wild.
It was not successful from a financial standpoint. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. But in the tabletop community overall, it was kind of I don't want to say a great move, but it is sort of one of the things that led to the creation of Pathfinder and these other games is because people were like, what the fuck is this garbage? We're going to use the OGL and move on with this edition that we like. So, there is some merit to blowing up your own Dungeons and Dragons company, I suppose.
Not for that. It didn't help Wizards. It helped the community.
No.
It didn't help Wizards one bit.
Yeah, and they've learned absolutely nothing.
Still a little bit unclear. All right, surely, look, they made this OGL. All right, yeah, get some extra content, modules, whatever. But there surely has to be from a legal standpoint, a difference between that and Paizo coming in and making a clone of the game.
No, because they used the
No.
mechanics, which you can't copyright.
Yeah, and so the OGL has a specific set of, it's called the SRD, so it's a specific set of rules that are allowed in anything OGL. It's one of the reasons why if you do something using the OGL, you could include I think Goliaths are in it, so you could include I might be wrong on that one, but let's just say the Goliaths are in it, so you could have a Goliath in your module, but tabaxis aren't, so you couldn't include a tabaxi. You could call it a cat person, but you could not call it a tabaxi because that's not included. So the OGL does not cover everything that Wizards or that Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition has out. It only covers very specific sections of the rules.
But also, here's the thing, Bob. Not everybody's a Paizo. Most people who are going to put together a modular, stuff like that, they're just going to put it together for D&D. So it's it's increasing market share and it's increasing mind share.
No, I got that, but it happened.
Well, yeah.
Outside of that specific circumstance, there's no real benefit to cloning D&D because D&D already existed and had the market share. So if they hadn't pivoted away from 3rd edition, no one would have really had incentive to buy shittier 3rd edition,
Or more
which it was at
importantly,
first.
yeah, if they hadn't fucked up 4th edition, there probably would not be a path, or there might be a Pathfinder, but probably nobody would care.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
it was a market opportunity
Yeah.
that existed because Dungeons and Dragons fucked up so hard.
All right, I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be ignorant here, but all right, if how did that create an opportunity? Why would people go to Pathfinder and not just back to 3.5?
Because there was no new content
Yeah.
coming out for 3.5.
All right.
So
all right.
remember, they
Yeah.
had to create the OGL because there was such an insatiable appetite for more modules and content and adventures and stuff. And so as soon as D&D transitioned to 4th edition, they cut the flow, sort of like Overwatch killing Overwatch 1 when Overwatch 2 came out. They were like, nope, fuck it. You don't get anything else for that. You have to buy the new shit.
Yeah.
So Pathfinder was like, well, we'll just keep publishing shit in the system you like. So when D&D turned off the content drip, it gave Paizo a chance to turn it on.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, I get it now.
Yeah, because there just isn't. Wizards did not have the capacity to produce the amount of adventures and things that the community wanted. And so this let them keep the community satisfied while also still putting out their own things without any sort of extra cost for them, really.
So that was the 4th edition debacle.
And now we're on the 5th edition debacle.
So 5th edition came back strong. It was a really good. It is a really good system. I love it. It's probably my favorite system
do
I've
too.
played.
Me too.
And it took them a while to
Yeah.
win back the community from 4th.
Yeah, it did. I remember a few friends that I switched over from 3.5 to 5, and they were like, I don't know about this bullshit again. So
It was kind of a
was a lot
reverse
of-
perfect storm, because at that point, because when 5 came out, Pathfinder was starting to get bloated, and that's what
It
people,
was.
yeah. So it really was like, it almost kind of was like, like Wizards kind of like, they dropped the ball, but like, it got volleyed back to them, and they finally caught it that time.
Yeah, they did. And so in 2016, I think is when 5th edition came out. And there also is now the DMs Guild, which I don't think a lot of people realize that the OGL does not apply to the DMs Guild exactly. It's under a completely different agreement. It's the same thing with fan content. That's under its own separate agreement. So like this podcast, live streams, fan art, that sort of thing is all under a fan content policy, not the OGL.
I'm still not really sure what DM's Guild even is.
Yeah, I
So
have no idea.
the DMs Guild is a website that is supported by One Bookshelf, I think is the company behind it. So it has an agreement with Wizards of the Coast, specifically for so under the DMs Guild program, you can publish any D&D material with either no setting, or you can actually use specific D&D settings, which is something you cannot do in the OGL. So if you want to write a Eberron adventure specifically, you have to publish that through DM's Guild because the OGL does not allow that. So the DM's Guild opens you up to have more content. So it's probably I would probably say it is the biggest library / Amazon-esque website for Dungeons and Dragons content. You can go on there and look for modules, you can look for adventures, you can look for new subclasses, you can look for all kinds of stuff on there. Does that explain it at all?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
that does. It kind of almost makes me embarrassed. I didn't know what it was, but then I realized that I'm probably not going to visit anyway. So
Yeah, because there's the DMs Guild, and then there also is Drive Through RPG, which is a separate website, still owned by the same company, but that it follows specifically the OGL. So any content on that has to follow the OGL, while any content on the DMs Guild follows a different requirement. So the DMs Guild has a special agreement with Wizards of the Coast, where essentially most of their content is available for you to use. So in an Eberron adventure, I can specifically say Warforged. I don't have to, go Robot Man or things like that.
How dare you.
So you can specifically use that, use the terms in the Dungeons and Dragons. You can phrase them exactly like it. You can pull from existing stat blocks, so it opens up things a little bit more. And generally, I would say it probably sells much better for D&D than Drive-Through RPG does. But yeah, so the OGL is something different from what the DM's Guild agreement is. So I will be very curious to see if that agreement changes too, which so far there hasn't been anything about that.
Okay, so where do we leave off for DM's Guild? We're 5th edition. We're at 5th
Yeah.
edition. 5th edition won people back. And then, so I guess there's been a quote going around from an executive from, I think it was last month, as one of the Wizards leaks. It should be noted, almost everything we've gotten from Wizards has been leaks. They did not want any of this shit out in the open, and God bless the wonderful employees who are putting their jobs on the line to keep them from getting to pull this shit. But there was a very prominent quote going around from one of the executives that basically, to paraphrase, it was, the Dungeons and Dragons community is tremendously under-monetized. They see a potential to get a lot more money out of D&D because D&D has exploded. That's what we should talk on too, is culturally, because of things like Authors and Dragons, and to a lesser extent, Critical Role and Dimension 20 and whatnot.
What are those?
Stranger Things.
Yeah, those little things.
Well, yeah, if you've heard of those.
You're welcome, Wizards.
Yeah. So because of all the cool shit a lot of people have been creating over the past few years, D&D has become big. It's become much more culturally relevant. The pandemic certainly didn't hurt people's need to interact remotely, and it's something that has had the tools for remote play and remote interaction for a while. So it was, Roll20 made for an easy jump. So D&D culturally is, I would say, at least arguably at its biggest it's ever been. You could maybe make a debate for back in its heyday, but I can't imagine a time when it has been more mainstream accepted than now.
Yeah, and what I think that the executives are trying to do is that they are trying to create a brand like a Disney or a Marvel and not a tabletop game company. We've got the movie coming out. There's animated series. There is an expansion into what they're doing. When they do their announcements about things, it is frequently about which celebrity is going to make an appearance. So I feel like they're trying to turn it into more of a brand type of thing.
I think they're trying to treat it like it's a cool kid thing. Like, they're like, oh, we know how to, generate hype for Hollywood properties and whatnot, and very clearly not understanding their audience. And to be fair, D&D is a tricky IP to monetize because, it's not like there's a main character or, even a core piece of lore. Hell, even a central world. There's just, it's so expansive because it's a sandbox for creativity, which is great for a tabletop RPG. It's not great if you're like, we need to tell a Dungeons and Dragons movie. What the fuck does that mean? That's every goddamn fantasy movie released since Dungeons and Dragons was created. Like, it's too big of a concept with too little of recognizable stuff in it. And that has been a problem for them on the monetization side for a while.
Yeah, it's like they just don't know what to do with it, and they want it to be something that it's not.
I think that says it they definitely want it to be something that it is not.
Well, they see the potential because other people are making, are making it popular. They're doing the things that, Wizards are just like, why are we not doing this? Why are we not controlling it? Why are we not controlling this narrative?
Why are we not feels like it should be the slogan for Wizards. Why are we not building fucking Dungeons and Dragons Beyond? Why did that have to happen from a third party? A searchable monster database is the most basic tool that really should have been around forever, and adding it from D&D Beyond just made things so much easier. Why are we not the ones who made Roll20? it seems like the reason they're trying to kill virtual tabletops is because they've realized how fucking far behind the game they are in an industry they should have been leading the way.
Well, that was the thing. Fourth edition included promises for all that stuff that never
Mhm.
materialized.
Yeah. I was very
Yeah.
salty on launch day about that shit. That also really fucked them. Their early adopters got screwed the most.
Yeah, like it still makes me mad when I buy a physical book and there's no like even a discount code for something on D&D Beyond or anything like that. And you know, there are other sites that do similar things to D&D Beyond, not as nicely and not as well packaged. And now that D&D Beyond is officially under the WotC branch, I can't wait to see how they're going to break it.
I'm so sad about that. I love D&D Beyond, and you know
Yeah.
they're gonna. We can talk about. They've already got plans to fuck it up.
Yeah, but yeah,
Hell, they're already blaming this new OGL on them.
I know they've been the ones who've posted because yeah, Kobold Fight Club is pretty fun. They're not quite as extensive as D&D Beyond, but they can be a decent backup monster resource. But yeah, D&D Beyond makes me sad because it is such a missed opportunity by, you know, you've been sitting on all of this stuff for how long, WotC, and yet you have to wait for other people to do the stuff and then go, oh yeah, that's a good idea. We'll just buy that.
Well,
So
this
frustrating.
just shows, like, like, let's be honest, this shows the absolute contempt for like the people who use it. It really does. I mean, Hasbro buying it, and then like it wasn't until like a big shareholder meeting that like oh, they realized that Wizards of the Coast was like 70% of their revenue.
That's actually something we should touch on. Yeah, that shareholder meeting was a big thing.
I heard 20%. Is that not right?
I mean, it might have been 70 and now it's 20.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, all right.
And dropping.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a big shareholder kerfuffle a few months back where, more or less, there was some waves to try and split Wizards of the Coast off to be its own thing, I believe, out of Hasbro, because Wizards of the Coast is basically keeping Hasbro afloat, and Hasbro's like, no, you need our management skills to make this profitable. And they barely got the votes to keep things, and so they're like, okay, we've got to prove it's profitable, and so that's part of the push, and it's almost, I mean, they just basically are like, fuck you, we'll show you who's fucking keeping us afloat. Can't keep us afloat if we burn it all down.
Yeah, because I think in August, some of the creator discords I'm in started having some leaks talking about changes that were potentially coming to D&D Beyond. And then in November, October maybe, there were whispers of a few people being reached out to and having to sign non-disclosure agreements before they could talk about it. But people were starting to be aware that something was happening with the OGL. I don't think anybody fully knew the extent of it until the leak actually was published by Gizmodo. But yeah, there's a very strong information sharing network in the D&D community, which I very much love. And I think that shareholder meeting is where some of these things came from.
Okay, so there was a shareholder meeting, a push to monetize. From that, we saw the OGL redevelopment, their attempt to force contracts down people's throats, despite what they claim it was not a draft. And but it got leaked, and the internet basically lost its shit. And allegedly, we're into a little bit speculation, a little bit leaky territory, but by all accounts, they were trying to ride out the negative storm until another leak brought up the attention that, hey, they're trying to ignore this, but they are watching the D&D Beyond subscriptions as a metrics just to see if their cash cow is bleeding. So if you want to hurt them, cancel your subscription. And I think it was on a Tuesday where this, or it was late Monday or a Tuesday where this D&D Beyond started gaining traction. And then the announcement and stream they had planned for that day got canceled, as apparently the WotC offices were just on fucking fire with, by some accounts, there's no way to get tangible ones, but the last one I heard was something like 20,000 subscriptions had been canceled that day.
Bad enough that they like took down their automated cancel tool and made you get into a queue.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And the page went down too. Like there wasn't a way to access it for a little bit too.
And so after that happened, that is when we got the gaslighting horseshit apology that Judy referenced at the top, which was at least an attempt to respond and sort of, I don't know, halfway lie their way out of it. After that, the community called horseshit on it, as they should. There's a new announcement that came out today that we should touch on, but before we hit that, let's talk about the D&D Beyond leak, because I feel like this fits in right between those two, is when we got screenshots and news that they were the D&D Beyond subscription service there's a free tier, a player tier, it's just a hero tier, and a DM tier. The DM tier is very handy in that you can share your books with everybody in your campaign. So I have purchased most of the books on D&D Beyond, and so for A&D, I had the guys make their characters and log in, and so they have, full access to everything. It's a very cool feature, and I think they were looking at charging $30 a month for it going forward.
That is the number that keeps being thrown around.
I honestly, I can't remember what it was. I think it was like $100 for the year, if I'm remembering right, currently.
Maybe.
So a pretty steep increase. I don't think I'm gonna pay that. But I mean, even I think it was like, and all of the tiers were getting either gutted or you had to pay. I think it was like the whole thing was the free tier is basically just dog shit. It exists as a proof of concept, and then there was the next tier up, and then the $30 a month tier, and I'm sure there was a gold $100 a month tier where they just laugh at you.
Yeah, they were gutting the homebrew content stuff, especially for like the lower tiers.
Yep.
Ugh. Yeah. And they keep talking about, that they're going to add a virtual tabletop option for Dungeons and Dragons Beyond and all of this stuff, and it, nothing has shown up yet. So
just for the record, makers of Roll20, if you're listening, you better not sell out.
Well, my concern on that front is that I'm betting eventually D&D Beyond is going to lock their API, and you're not going to be able to share your sheet with sites like Roll20 eventually.
Technically, you can't officially do it, but yeah, you're right. Locking it down, I wouldn't doubt that.
My guess is eventually that's what's going to happen.
I mean, are they? They have to be planning to launch a VTT. They are working so hard to kill the other virtual tabletops. It would be bizarre for them not to have one they're trying to launch.
Yeah, but at any point have they shown that they actually know what they're doing?
Oh God, no. Like, I don't think it will be good, but I'm just like making sure like they do have something, right? They're not just like trying to kill Roll20 because fuck Roll20.
I mean, I honestly would not be surprised at this point, because they're just like, let's kill D&D 5e too. One D&D forever, which no one wants.
Yeah, it's like, hey, let's just, I guess, kill the tool which lets people play remotely. The only way people can fucking play these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, if they were just like, fuck it, yeah, let's kill all the VTTs. They go back to pen and paper. Make them come crawling back for our shitty VTT.
And you gotta pay for our paper!
God. It really, if nothing else, this has proven that whoever said Wizards of the Coast needed to be spun off was dead fucking right.
Yeah.
Like, Hasbro does not have any understanding of what's happening. I truly cannot understand how their board hasn't voted no confidence yet. Like, this has been a weeks-long gutting of their stock, of their reputation. The only thing that I can think of is they don't understand the breadth of the damage.
Yeah, I think that they still think it's going to just blow over.
I don't think they understand the product. I mean, Hasbro is like, they're a toy company. They're kind of like, they're when they put out like, a My Little Pony and somebody doesn't like it, they don't give a fuck. They don't seem to realize that like, a good chunk of their D&D community and their Magic the Gathering community are not like, are not sitting in, are not like, high schoolers sitting in mom's basement. I don't think they quite understand that.
Yeah.
Pretty much a lot of the D&D community.
I mean, it is impressive how they managed to piss off every section of D&D, even the ones that absolutely hate one another.
Yeah,
Like they pissed off all of them.
it's true.
All of them.
It's every single D&D race, even the ones that, like, genetically hate each other, all coming together to be like, no, fuck that guy.
Yeah, the orcs are like walking into
Yeah.
town going, we hate you, but like we hate these guys more.
It's like, listen, orcs
Yeah.
are monsters, and I'll kill every one of them as soon as I'd blink. But fuck Jim. Fuck you, Kyle Brink.
Yeah.
Poor Kyle. He is their
Just
he
all
truly
come after
is
Kyle.
he truly is their sacrificial lamb.
I know.
Poor guy.
And he hasn't even been there 6 months. Oh
You gotta feel
my
bad for the
God.
people, like, because D&D Beyond got bought by Wizards, like, a year ago,
Mhm.
and they got fucked over this art. It was a beloved piece of software.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Ugh.
we mentioned the damage conceptually, but let's talk about it. They're launching a new system, 1D&D, at some point. I was think it might have been soon, but not now, probably. They have a movie coming out. They have been trying to broaden the D&D brand in these other capacities, build the characters and the lore and the stuff they need for media stuff. And I gotta tell you, there is just no part of me, like, there's no fucking way I'm touching whatever their next system is. Especially we're content creators.
Well,
There's nothing in me that wants to take the risk of that.
Well, there's a pretty big movement, like in addition to D&D Beyond, there's a pretty big movement to purposely tank the movie, just as a giant fu.
Yeah. Yep, there sure is.
The D&D community was probably the people they needed most to come out to that, because historically those movies don't do well.
Yeah.
And it is also the community that they have actively made sure has zero fucking motivation to go see that movie, and a lot of
Sold it for me to begin with. But
Same.
this definitely makes it like
The trailers look pretty cool to me.
I don't know.
I was okay, but I probably would have gone out of that little sense of loyalty. Like, I'd have thrown my ticket money in to be like, fuck it, I want more D&D content. And now
Yes.
I don't.
No.
I really, until Hasbro doesn't control it, until the people who did this are out on their ass, like, I'm happy to see D&D fail for another generation.
We'll sit home and we'll watch Rings of Power again.
Though I have to say, what super sucks about this is I write Dungeons and Dragons content, so I am getting all of that. My sales have absolutely plummeted. I get blasted on Twitter if I post anything promoting anything D&D 5e related. It sucks. Like, it so sucks because things that are completely out of my control have totally screwed me over. Like, everything I was planning on creating this year, I am now having to stop and think, okay, do I need to learn a new system? Am I going to have to refigure out how to make this something else? What the fuck do I do? And is anybody going to even buy Dungeons and Dragons crap anymore because the company blew it up? So, like, it does, like, I'm planning on not seeing the movie. I don't want to give them my money, but, like, it also super sucks because a lot of small independent creators are getting completely screwed over by this because people are angry with Dungeons and Dragons, and then that's going to hurt everyone else. Because, like, the beginning of this year has sucked because literally my entire creative calendar got blown up when this OGL thing dropped. I have had to redo everything.
It's like you're all these like little shoemakers like putting out like a product, and then like you look up and realize, the Nazi party decided to wear them all herself.
Like, it just has been, it sucks. And, like, I've stopped even posting any of my stuff on social media because I keep getting nastygrams on Twitter about it. And yeah, like, I think that it's so easy to get caught up in being super bad at Dungeons and Dragons that you kind of just lump everybody in with it. And that sucks because I know, like, me and a bunch of the other creators, we're just kind of all stuck in this what do we do thing, because do we continue actually creating for this system? Do we all try and find a new system? Do we wait and see what's going on with this ORG thing? I can't wait that long. I have bills to pay, but nobody's buying D&D
Well, yeah,
stuff.
that's the thing
So,
that like they're forgetting. It's like, this is the work of a relatively small group of people. I mean, there are people within Wizards of the Coast, the ones who are leaking, who are obviously fans of the game. Anybody making third-party content, they're fans of the game. It's a couple. It's a couple like money grubbing executives who are just shitting on the entire thing for everyone.
yeah. And like I love 5th edition. It's one of my favorite games to play. It's one of my favorite things to write content for. And now I don't know if I'm going to do it anymore, and that's weird to just completely kind of be a little blindsided by, but also you are having to deal with it and get angry people too. And I'm like, man, I wish I had the power to tell Watsy what to do, man. You are giving me way more credit than I deserve. Let me tell you, man, I'm so happy you think so highly of me.
So this really hits a big part of the repercussions aspect I wanted to touch on, because we mentioned earlier that the original point of the OGL was to create a third-party market of all this content that D&D itself could not generate on its own, and it succeeded. It built, the massive ones we've talked about. We had Paizo, there's Cobalt Press, there's enough independent stuff for Judy to do content creation. With things as they are, I feel like everyone in that game is at least going to learn another system, at least going to start publishing under whatever Paizo or the secondary dominant one does, just because I can't see there being a market for the next D&D generation shit. Even if they said, never mind, OGL stays as is, we're all good. The trust is broken. We know they'll fuck us because they fucked us twice now, but like this time really bad. And I do wonder if because of this the third party market is going to be a little bit more ruined in the sense that like I don't know if they're going to get the third party market back the way it was.
Yeah, I think that the impact this is going to have on the third party groups is going to be horrible. I think there are probably some places that aren't going to make it through just because people are going to not be buying the same number of D&D things because of this lack of trust, this anger at Dungeons and Dragons and what they've done. I mean, I've seen my numbers plummet since the beginning of January, and yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to fragment the market. It will probably open it up, and more things and systems will start getting attention. And I'm sure one will sort of take off and maybe become the new Pathfinder. But yeah, currently there's a whole lot of people that are going to get completely screwed over by this. And yeah, like I'm so tired that I'm almost not even angry anymore because I am just exhausted at having to try and figure out how to replan my entire creative career because of this. Like it it's such bullshit.
Well, it's like,
I don't know what else to
well, for a
say.
while there, I mean, we were thinking about publishing some official A&D stuff for like for
Mhm.
D&D, like like character classes or like character builds for like for like like Silas and Klaus and stuff. And at this point, it's like yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's been dead in the water because we've never moved forward with it. But it's like it's not even really like part of the conversation anymore.
Yeah, so yeah, like the whole OGL thing, it makes me really mad, but right now it honestly just makes me so sad because I personally am losing something that I love to do and that was monetarily fairly successful for me. And like, that just sucks. There's I keep saying that, but I can't think of another word. It just is been so shitty. And all because some people who don't even understand the game or give a shit about the players decided that they could milk a little extra cash out of it.
And it bears hitting back again. This OGL plan was so stupid
Hmm.
from the get-go.
Yeah. Yes.
One of the main provisions has been universally looked at and said, no fucking way they're gonna win that. Uh, it's just, it truly, if it turns out that someone was basically trying to tank the Hasbro stock with some sort of weird poison pill corporate buyout thing, that will make more sense to me than the array of
Yes.
decisions we have seen. Like,
Yes.
it's mind-bogglingly stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even just from like a pure marketing and PR standpoint, the silence for a week. No. Like,
Well, yeah,
no.
and it just shows, and once again, it just shows so much contempt for, like, for the people who are part of the community, because it basically is like, we all have MBAs. They're all stupid. If we just hide it, they'll never figure it out.
Lol, trying to hide anything from the rules lawyer.
Yeah.
Good
I was
luck.
gonna say, this is like the absolute worst community to
Yeah.
try and pull semantics fuck around shit with. Like, I can't tell you how many goddamn hours I've wasted with motherfuckers who read the rule book backwards, forwards, and sideways
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
so that they could do 19 goddamn D8 damage at level 3 on
Yeah.
a fucking wild kobold. Like, no. I promise you, man.
Really?
This is not the fight.
And if you think
Yeah.
things aren't going to leak out, it's like, a whole big chunk of, like, of D&D, or like secret societies like Thieves Guilds, Scarlet Brotherhood and shit,
Yeah.
I guarantee there's some of the leakers in there thinking to themselves, like, in their minds, they're wearing a hood, they're like, they're gray mousing the shit out of this stuff.
Hey, you know what? In my mind too. God fucking bless
Yeah.
them. They got this shit out there.
Yeah, and the original leak came from content creators who had been given this. That's the original leak, and then more WotC people have started doing leaks as well. And I'm just like, bless y'all, because otherwise, this just suddenly showing up.
Yeah, I mean, what was
Yeah.
a week? They gave people a week
Yeah.
to have to sign this or like feel like they were getting like it was really designed to choke it down fast before you can realize what you're eating.
Yeah, exactly. This is our sweetheart deal for you, limited time only.
Yeah. It is interesting that we joked around earlier. Obviously, there are way bigger content creators than us in the D&D space. I find it interesting that both the OGL did have provisions to outline sweetheart deals, and very wisely, none of the big creators have really said jack shit about this.
Mhm.
I have a feeling that they maybe got offered. I'm sure they got offered. Whether they took it or not, I have no idea. But
Yeah.
I mean, Wizards would have been stupid not to offer them a sweetheart deal. That's granted, God fucking what we've seen, but like. Yeah, you have to imagine that even if they got those offers, they're like, maybe we just don't mention that.
Yeah, that's one of those things where you gather everybody in the office and be like, this never happened, otherwise we will be destroyed.
It's like, everybody,
Yeah.
look at me. This is the contract they sent over. I'm putting it in the shredder, okay? Okay, we can't talk about it, but if anybody fucking asks. Yeah, it's so mind-boggling.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I've seen people posting, they're like, they're going to study this in MBA courses now. This was so badly done.
Probably.
Like, that's incredible.
This does feel like a very good holy shit, can you believe?
It does.
Yeah,
It really
and it's
does.
like not even
'cause-
just once. It's like, it's like the whole thing was just like clown college over and over and over again, and still kind of ongoing. Now that they've, like, put poor Kyle in the crosshairs of the world.
Yeah, should be noted, this is all ongoing, very much so. Like,
Yeah.
you're probably out there in the future capable of getting more updates. I'm sure things have gone down in the days since we recorded this.
Oh god, I can only imagine what bullshittery is going to have appeared since.
Hi,
Oh,
hi, friends,
God.
Kyle here again. Please stop hating me.
Well, I mean, tomorrow's Friday, and historically that is the press release dump day. So I'm just like, okay, what you gonna tell us tomorrow? See what you gonna try and slide in at 4:55 Pacific time.
Just imagining a video of some poor, I don't know, middle-aged guy with over thick glasses. I don't know you, Kyle, but I'm just assuming. Like in a very bare room, reading a typed statement, shivering, clearly looking at someone off camera.
Someone
it
save
was
Kyle.
my fault. I did it.
God.
I did it.
I was just about to say something similar. The Wizards are going to release a video of them, like, them like, burying this poor guy and like out in the desert and be like, there, we took care of Kyle for you. We can all be friends again now, right?
Sorry, who's this Kyle guy? You're talking? Is he like Bruce Willis at the beginning of Die Hard 3 when he gets out there with the sandwich board?
A little no.
Yeah.
So in the new statement, the second one that came out today, that was actually better drafted, still full of horseshit and lies, but at least didn't take an aggressive tone.
Yeah.
Kyle Brink is the executive who, as Judy pointed out, was hired in November. So probably not the actual mastermind. He's the executive whose name got put on it. So
Yeah.
just a
Yeah,
poor
he's-
new hire who's just getting the shit stick.
Yeah, he is the executive producer, so I think that means that he is over all of the people who create the books and things. I don't know. I don't have their org chart in front of me, but that would
Yeah,
be my
I
guess.
feel bad because, like, I mean, we're a group of fantasy writers, and I was going to wonder how many Kyle Brinks are going to die in fiction over the next year.
Oh, God.
God.
I feel like most of us realize, like,
Yeah, I
it's
know.
very clear that this poor
It's
guy
not
just
his
got
fault.
marched out in front of the angry mob with an "I'm the bad guy" hat.
Basically. They at least have given him better statements than their first garbage release.
Yeah, some people will tell you they've won and they didn't. We both won.
Yeah. Yeah, like, oh, fuck you.
This shit.
It's like, it's not a lot of voices, it's just a few really loud people. Sure.
Not
Yeah,
20,000 subscriptions being canceled. I mean, honestly, yeah, I gotta tell you, I really, I'll throw out there, if you're listening to this and you know of another good system like D&D Beyond, post it in the comments, because shit, I really would like one to start learning and migrating to, because I really don't have much faith that D&D Beyond is going to stay good.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
I
No,
loved
no
it.
faith.
It really saves me so much time. It's a massive convenience. I have loved it, and I am sure Wizards is going to fuck it up hard.
Oh, absolutely.
I've got long-term faith. Four AD. Then we got 5.
Maybe 7th edition will rock.
Dungeons and Dragons is not going anywhere.
No.
I mean, it is, and Dungeons and Dragons is only as big as the community makes it, and if we collectively all move on to a different system, then I'm sure it will still always be around, but if it wasn't the dominant game for a good few years, like during the 4th edition time, it truly was not the game people were playing.
Yeah, and
doesn't
then
look like-
they learned and adapted, and
Yeah,
I think that's going to happen again.
I tend to agree with Bob. It's like, D&D is probably going to be in the shitter for at least another decade. But like, it's kind of like the game war, or the console wars. Like Sony is a great example in that, they'll win one generation, completely get arrogant and fuck up the next, but then come back and win the again. So yeah, I have no doubt that that D&D will survive and probably make a comeback. Because after a while,
I just don't think it's a given.
Yeah, 7th edition is gonna rock.
Yeah. I want it to. I've loved it. I've loved the stuff, but I don't think for the next generation, I don't think it's going to be the dominant game. That feels like not even a guess right now. That feels like just the most obvious outcome. I definitely think it can make a comeback 100%. It has to get into better hands. That feels like the thing. Like, it can make a comeback, but if Hasbro doesn't take their fucking hands off the wheel, and give it to someone who knows what they're doing, then I don't think it's a given that it will. Like, if they keep fucking up like this, it's not gonna come back.
You need a combination in there. It's like when you have a company like that that's just run by gamers. Yeah, eventually it is gonna shit the bed because nobody knows how to run a business. But you can't just have nothing but the business people in charge. You have to find that mix of like, okay, there are people on this board who have an equal say, who love the game, oh, and there's also people who understand how to keep the lights like, on.
Well, that's part of the problem with D&D belonging to any publicly traded company.
Hmm.
Not to get
Yeah.
too in the weeds with like
Mhm.
financial bullshit, but there is a legal obligation on a
Yeah.
publicly traded company for the management to maximize profit as much as possible. That is part of your job, your fiscal responsibility for a publicly traded company. If you don't do that, you open yourself up to lawsuits, penalties, etc. Like,
Yes.
it deeply fucked up, but that is one of the major hurdles they're kind of forever stuck with, is being, as long as D&D is owned by a publicly traded company, it's going to be a harder battle.
Yeah, and I understand that, but some publicly traded companies have been able to fight back on that along the lines of pointing out that, hey, yeah, there's short term and then there's long term.
Does anything about Hasbro indicate an
Well,
understanding
no,
of
no,
long term?
okay. I said some, I didn't say them.
Yeah.
Oh God, do we want to talk at all about the
Yeah,
new one they just
sure.
released?
I
Ugh.
spent a good chunk of the afternoon reading it. I want to talk about it.
Good.
So
I did not, so I will let y'all educate me.
So I mean, it really comes down to like the OGL 1.2 is not as onerous, but it's also not great in its language.
Mhm.
I mean, my takeaway was that I kind of had a couple takeaways. The first is obviously the whole they're still hanging on to the whole fuck you, even though it's perpetual. The OGL 1.0 is dead. They're still hanging on that. They're riding or dying with that. The second is, and I understand this from a public relations standpoint, they're trying to go ride really hard on the whole, well, we just want to control hateful or obscene content. And the public relations reason for this is, anybody who comes out against that, they can easily point a finger and be like, oh, so you obviously like hateful content. But the writer in there in the OGL is they get to decide what is hateful or obscene, which means that like it could be anything. It could be like my upcoming module, the sex gnomes of Masturbate Cove or something, or it could be something that they just don't like. They're like, you're making too much money with this, and no, it's obscene. Because there's a writer also there that basically says we decide what's obscene and hateful. Oh, and you can't say anything about it. There's no recourse there, so that's a little onerous. They're kind of hiding behind the whole thing of like, oh, we're trying to be good corporate citizens while still controlling shit.
Especially considering that literally in last year, WotC had to rewrite and start doing adjustments in their own book that came out in
Yeah.
Starjammer because it was so bad.
I read a little bit about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was not enough to
Yeah.
comment, but yeah. So you talk about
And I
it.
know I've already seen a few people pointing out that, so I won't get too much into it because this is a whole separate thing, but that WotC currently has filed suit against a company called TSR LLC for one of their games that they have coming out. So TSR was the original
Yeah.
company. This
TSR LLC, a coincidental name?
No, it
Okay.
was founded. This company is actually founded by one of Gary Gygax's sons. It's a whole thing. It's tangential, but so WotC does have a pending suit against them for a game that they have coming out called Starfighters New Genesis. It is truly, truly, truly awful. I'm not even going to go into the stuff that it has. If you're curious, there are plenty of articles about it. It's truly awful. But the thing that is this has nothing to do with even OGL content. This isn't even published under OGL, but I'm already seeing people pull that out as sort of a, I don't know if it's quite a straw man argument, but an argument. But yeah, that's not what this is about, and I agree because we have actually had this happen several times on DM's Guild, where there have been books pulled for being too queer or too sexy, or we don't like this language, you have to rename it. Like that happens on DM's Guild. There have been several instances of that happening. So it, yeah, the idea of them having the full final say so on what is and isn't, I have problem
Yeah.
with.
They are not a trustworthy steward of that
No.
responsibility. Would be
No.
a generous way to put it.
Oh, that is
And,
such a good
yeah,
way
and
to
then
put
there's
it.
their new virtual tabletop license,
Ugh.
and the fun thing there is they really are stretching when they're basically like, oh well, hey, if you can just play the game through it, that's cool. But if there's anything that adds to it that we think is like beyond what your imagination can can offer, and they offer is if there's an animation of say casting a magic missile, they're like that makes it a video game, not a virtual tabletop, which if you look at that really from a wide angle, that basically says, oh, you have a virtual dice roller that does a little animation. Oh, you're a video game. So their thing is basically saying, yeah, we can only control that, and if you do anything other than offer pretty much just text-based shit, we consider that a video game, and thus you get no license.
Which again is
Yeah.
nuts because they don't have a
Yes.
VTT.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's not even just Dungeons and Dragons stuff. I mean, yeah, that whole section had me just like staring in shock that there's no
Yeah.
way that these words actually say what they say.
Yeah.
What you can't animate a spell.
Yeah, I mean, probably the dynamic lighting on Roll20 just destroys them. Yeah, it really is ridiculous how they say, oh no, this is defined as a video game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
like,
they're defining
oh.
that as a video game. Yet there was leaks talking about how they wanted to create AI dungeon masters.
Oh God.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
Honestly, I think we could break AI in one session, but that's
Oh, absolutely,
they
absolutely.
have no. That's how we get the fucking singularity right
Yeah.
there. It's like, so how did the robot revolution happen? Well, they made AI and made them be dungeon masters to a bunch of angry D&D players. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
That'll do it.
That'll do it.
That'll do it.
All right, we're up on an hour. Does anyone have any closing thoughts on this OGL debacle for now? As we've clearly said, this is not over.
I guess my closing thoughts would be to please just be nice to the small creators that are getting their asses handed to them right now. There are a whole lot of creators right now who are having to plan their entire creative business, and it super sucks. So be nice. Please don't yell at anybody, any single person about this decision, even if they work at Wizards. Don't go out and find Kyle on LinkedIn and yell at him. No, just be nice.
Kyle's probably the one person at Wizards we know didn't have involvement in this.
Yeah, but yeah, that would just be my one takeaway is just please be nice to the people who are having a real terrible time, because they're not the ones who are making this change.
I will follow that up by saying absolutely be nice to content creators, be nice to the employees who are stuck working for a corporation just like most of us have been or are, and just like your CEO doesn't ask your opinion on shit, I promise theirs didn't either. But I will say, to correspond with the be nice to the people, be mean to Wizards. Be mean to Wizards, especially in the wallets. If in any way right now you can undercut them, not the third-party people, as Judy mentioned, but if you can hurt Wizards' wallet book, if you can afford to cut your Roll20 or your D&D Beyond subscription, if you can cancel pre-orders on books, boycott the movie, basically anything to remind them to go fuck themselves. Right in the wallet, which is the only thing they care about, then by all means go for it. Be mean to Wizards.
Yep. Echoing.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
But but I will say, short term with a long term goal. I don't think Wizards are going anywhere. I don't think D&D is going anywhere, and I don't want them to. Yeah, hurt them so that they can be better.
Yeah, this has to be one of those lessons they remember for at least a decade. That's the type of hurt it needs to be.
Yeah, somebody needs to get fired over this shit.
And not Kyle.
And not Kyle.
Not Kyle.
No, leave.
Yeah, let him have his kids and his pets back, Wizards.
Let him out of the bunker.
I think Kyle could eventually be friends with Samuel L. Jackson.
Let him meet John Cena. He deserves a Make-A-Wish after whatever y'all done to him. All right, everybody. That is going to be it for Authors and Dragons this week. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Chronicles of Calamity, the final chapters. Reminder that we are in the final run of games leading up to the big finale of that campaign. So if you want to jump on and see how it ends, it is an excellent time. All right, we will see you next week. Until then, bye.
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 Goodbye, friends.